Well, good afternoon. It's been a while since I did a video. I've been busy. Um my son owns a property management company, and I do plumbing repairs and dishwashers and garbage disposals, and I fix ranges and ovens, the parts on it I can fix, like change burners and heating elements and such. Install new doors or replace doors and repair them, or whatever has to be done to get these units back up and running. And so I've been pretty busy doing that the last week or so, and kind of been neglectful in making a new video. Uh, I promised to do a video on what blade I would recommend for the Dewalt 790 saw. Now, bear in mind, this saw is a 17 amp saw, which is a pretty powerful saw. It's not the most powerful, but it's probably the most powerful saw you buy for a contractor, somebody in a home shop, as opposed to one of the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 horsepower saws you'd buy for a cabinet shop, or for somebody building log homes or something like that, cutting big beams and things. But this is a pretty powerful saw compared to my other one, which was 10 amps. This one's 17. So I put the 8-inch saw blade that I had on the other saw on here, and I wasn't all that pleased with it because it lowers the saw 2 inches lower to the table than it would be if you're using a 12-inch blade. And so it makes it much harder. You have to get down real low and look underneath the saw to see where the kerf is in your fence, so you can line your board up, the mark on your board with the saw kerf that's in the fence, so you can make a really accurate cut. And I found that irritating. Plus, with that 8-inch blade, I couldn't tilt over and make a 45 cut through 1.5 stock. Now this, I can probably make an 1.5 cut through 2.5-inch stock. I don't know, I haven't tried, but I know I can do 1.5 stock very easily. And that's a pretty common bevel cut. Is a bevel cut through a 2x4 or a 2x6 or something like that. If you're doing compound miters for framing a roof or anything like that, or making an 8-sided figure or 4-sided, well, anything. There's times when you want to make a bevel cut on 1.5 thick stock, and it's nice to have a blade big enough to do it. The question is, does this saw have enough power to run a 12-inch blade? A lot of people say no. In fact, the majority of the people who you might talk to that know anything about radial arm saws would say, no, the maximum you want to run on that saw is a 10-inch blade. Well, there was one feller who dissented, and he'd been using the 12-inch blade on his 14 amp Delta saw with good effect. He had no problems running that on a 14 amp saw, and was certain that I would be able to run the same blade on my 17 amp Dewalt. So I bought one, and I bought the Freud. Let me zoom in on that so you can see it. I bought the Freud. All right, there it is. The Freud 12-inch 60-tooth combination blade. It's the LU84R012. Now, the 84 means it is a full kerf blade. It's not a thin kerf. It cuts a full 12 inches. A full 1/8-inch kerf, which I like that too, because I make jewelry boxes, and I like to make that 1/8-inch kerf to fit the bottoms in, and sometimes the lids and various things like that. It'd be nice to make that in one pass. And this saw blade will do that, and the thin kerfs won't. The other thing about the thick kerf blade is that there is more clearance between the edge of the tooth and the plate or face of the blade. So there's about 10 thousandths more clearance. which means I think you're going to get less burning once you get everything lined up right. You know, the blade parallel to the fence and all that when you're ripping. And I've ripped 2-inch alder, a full 8-quarter alder with this saw, with no problem. So it's not lacking in power. And cross-cutting, I've cross-cut a 4x6 with it, no problem. I mean, yes, it cuts. I mean, it just cuts right through it, and it leaves a nice, clean cut. So I am convinced that that if you have a saw that has 14 amps or more, it is fully capable of swinging a 12-inch blade. So that's what I recommend is why not be able to cut a 3.5-inch 4x4 or 4x6 or 4x8 in one pass if you can. If you got less than 14 amps, I wouldn't be thinking about putting a 12-inch blade on your saw. So that's enough of that on the blade. Now I want to do a little bit of a rant. One of the tenants in one of my son's properties that he manages destroyed a couple of doors, probably fighting with the wife, put fist holes in them and kicked the door off the hinges and busted up the jamb and everything. So I had to order a new pre-hung door. And usually when you're dealing with a home center, and sometimes even when you're dealing with a lumber company, they'll have people that are a little confused about what a left-hand door is, a right-hand door, right-hand swing out, right-hand swing in, left-hand swing out, all that kind of stuff. So, and different parts of the country kind of approach this thing differently. So when I moved from Arizona to Oregon, I noticed the confusion right away between the way we did things in Arizona and the difference anyway, is between the way they did things in Arizona and here. And so I got in a habit a long time ago, even when I was in Arizona dealing at a home store, of telling the guy this: look, get all that out of your head. Don't interrupt me, just listen to me, and I'll tell you the door I want. If I'm standing on the inside of the bedroom with the door closed and I can see the hinges are on my left. He says, they call that a right-hand door. I says, you can call it whatever you want. I want a door with the hinges on the left when I can see the hinges with the door closed. So he set one aside for my grandson to pick up, along with a bifold door and a bunch of other stuff he had to pick up for me. I live 20 miles from this home center. So today I went to the job site and cut the trim, and I'm nailing the trim on the door, making it into a pre-hung door that I can just slip into the hole. And I get two pieces, the long pieces, the two side pieces, the jambs, casings nailed on. And I'm looking at that door and I'm going, what is wrong here? I thought this piece here that's got this little flaw in it would be hid behind the door when the door is open. And now I can't put it on that side, I have to put it on the other side. And I thought, oh well. But it kept bothering me, and so finally I stood up and I looked at that door after I got two pieces of trim nailed on it. I says, that dumbass gave me a door with the hinges on the right. I told him I wanted the hinges on the left. It's not complicated. I don't care what you want to call it. I want the hinges on the left. So don't trust these guys. You know, if they're going to set something aside for you, make sure whoever's going to pick it up for you fully understands what you want in that door. It's really an aggravation. Well, you know, they don't pay these guys in these home centers top dollar, and so they're not the most qualified people in the world. But anyway, that's my rant. And thanks for listening to my rant, and I hope this video was of interest and possibly instructive. Thank you.